Hi, this is Phil Hall for Mortgage News Network here at the Mortgage Bankers Association's annual convention. And to my left is Timothy Scherf. He's Chief Operating Officer for PCV Mercor. We're going to be talking about the regulatory regimen that's going on today. So, Timothy, what can we talk about in terms of regulations?
Well, I think we're an appraisal management company, and from our standpoint, appraisal management companies now have a number of regulatory requirements at the state level that we didn't have a couple of years ago. And I think probably the biggest impact to the industry as a whole is we've got a number of different states with a number of different regulations, and it's interesting and it's difficult to keep up with all of them, and so it's added a lot of cost and complexity to the appraisal management business. On top of that, we also have our clients who are under a lot of scrutiny, as you know. I'm sure you've heard at this convention. And that scrutiny now with the third-party oversight guidelines is being taken down to our level as well. So we're facing a lot more in terms of not just audits, but the number of audits that we're facing from every lender and the intensity of those audits. So all of that has added a lot of cost and complexity to what was a fairly simple business just a few years ago.
We hear a lot about federal regulations, but tell us a bit more about the states. Are the states more severe when it comes to their regulations?
I don't know that I'd say they're more severe. It's just that there's a number of different regulations and there's not a lot of consistency. You have some states that you need to be licensed in and they have regulations. You have others that you need to be licensed in and they have their regulations, but on top of that they have audit requirements, and the audit requirements vary by state, so you've got to do standard 3 audits on your appraiser panel, and there's just a lot of complexity. And what it's done for the industry as a whole is it's forced us to spend a lot more money just keeping track of all these regulations. There's not a lot, as I mentioned before, not a lot of consistency from state to state. So that's what's really happening in our industry.
How are companies in the industry holding up with all of the regulations that are going on? Are they able to keep track and keep their expenses under control?
Well, I would say I can't speak for everybody, but I know that certainly we've been able to keep our expenses under control, but we just have a lot more expense. Keeping track of all the different regulations, of course, is a big expense. We've got layers of complexity internally now. We've probably tripled our compliance staff in the last year just to keep up with the different regulations. And like I said, I can't speak for everybody, but I would imagine most of us are in the same boat.
Well, it's not over yet. Come August 2015, there are going to be some more regulations coming down the road.
Yeah, and I would anticipate that we're going to continue to see more and more regulations. Ideally, what we'd love to see, I think, as an industry would be a single set of guidelines that were consistent from state to state. And I don't think that'll ever happen, but it would be wonderful if it did.
Do you know if the regulators, either at a federal level or a state level, are cognizant of the problems that the industry is facing in terms of the regulatory burden that's been put on them?
I don't know how cognizant they are. We certainly participate in industry events. We're trying to get them informed. I know that we participate in a number of trade organizations that are reaching out to the state regulators, interacting with them. As we speak, an Aero conference is coming up in Washington. We've got representation there. Our trade organizations have representation there to bring them up to speed on what the industry as a whole is facing, and to sort of, with the hope of level setting and getting some complexity reduced.
Well, Timothy Scherf, thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
This is Phil Hall for the Mortgage News Network.
This is Mortgage News Network.